Right now, if you go out to almost any store to pick up Christmas items, you'll be treated to a large variety of Christmas decorations that feature gnomes and gnomish themes. Gnome decorations seem to be everywhere at the moment, but why are gnomes currently so popular? When did all of this begin? Well, it turns out that gnomes are actually an old Christmas tradition. Let's take a look at the history of gnomes and Christmas gnome imagery. We should start by asking the question, what is a gnome? We all seem to know what a gnome is, but very few people know where the concept of the gnome originates and what features define a gnome. Wikipedia defines a gnome as a mythological diminutive spirit, first introduced in Switzerland in the 16th century, but later adopted across the world. A gnome is typically said to be a small humanoid that lives underground. The first reference to gnomes appears in a book called A Book on Nymphs, Sylphs, Pygmies, and Salamanders and the Other Spirits by the alchemist Paracelsus, published in 1566. Gnomes are described by Paracelsus as earth spirits, but over time they would take on the characteristics common to many of the mythological diminutive or fairy people of Northern Europe, such as elves, brownies, leprechauns, dwarves, Tomte, Nisse, or hobs. In fact, the term gnome has become one of the most common names for almost all of the tiny mythological people across the English-speaking world. One of the reasons the term gnome became the catch-all for the European-style diminutive person is the popularity of the garden gnome statue. Gnome statues have been around since at least the 1700s, but really saw an increase in popularity in the mid-19th century due to the gnome statues of Lamport Hall in Northamptonshire, England. The Christmas gnome that is popular today has its origins in many different European little people myths and customs, but seems to have been derived most directly from the Danish Nisse or Nordic Tomte. The Nisse or Tomte is a mythological creature from Nordic folklore that is typically associated with the winter solstice and the Christmas season. They are generally described as being short, having a long white beard, and wearing a conical or knit cap in gray, red, or some other bright colors. They often have an appearance similar to that of the garden gnome. According to tradition, the Nisse, like brownies, hobs, or leprechauns, live in houses and barns, and often secretly act as a family guardian. Like these other small spirits, if treated well, they protect the family and animals from evil spirits and misfortune. They may also perform chores and complete household work. However, they are known to be short-tempered, and if insulted, they will usually play tricks, steal items, and cause problems. They were often depicted along with red-capped, white-spotted mushrooms, which are common in Scandinavia. Sometimes the mushrooms were given human-like features. We can still see these in some modern examples. And every once in a while, the gnomes themselves were depicted as being mushroom people, or maybe wearing mushroom hats. Once again, there are modern examples of this strangeness. They were sometimes shown as using the mushrooms as shelters or umbrellas, while other times they were depicted as hauling the mushrooms through the snow. Pictures of gnomes on Christmas and New Year's celebration cards were common imagery in the 19th and early 20th centuries. And often the mushrooms were also depicted as houses for the gnomes. This is also a common trope when depicting diminutive people in popular modern fantasy media. The gnomes were often shown decorating the mushroom houses for the holidays. They would be seen decorating the outside of the house with flags, foliage, bells, or balls. Sometimes they would be shown cutting down a small sapling tree to decorate the inside of the mushroom dwellings. And the gnomes would often be shown traveling to visit other mushroom houses for the holidays. They would often bear gifts of treats, drinks, and even more holiday decorations. Sometimes these visitors were depicted as woodland animals instead of fellow gnomes. Once at a friend's house, the gnomes would be shown drinking, eating, playing music, and having fun. And they often used smaller mushrooms as tables for the festivities. Sometimes the gnome houses were not mushrooms, but depicted as hobbit-like dwellings in the snow-covered ground. Whether the houses were mushrooms or comfy hobbit holes, the gnomes are usually shown as having a good time together in the snow. It was also not uncommon to see them depicted as using trees for homes. The trees are usually shown housing many gnomes. We see depictions like this in modern times too. Every once in a while, the mushrooms were shown as being carnival-like rides for winter fun and frolicking. Playing music and dancing, the gnomes could often be seen with decorated mushroom houses and Christmas trees. Like many diminutive spirits of lore, they were usually eager to help the human inhabitants with chores and work. It was common to show the gnomes helping out with mundane chores and tasks. Or they could be depicted as helping deliver gifts and spreading holiday cheer. To do this, they used many means of conveyance. Here, they are shown using a moose as a mount. They were also shown as using sleighs led by deer or other wild animals. And sometimes they even used sleds pulled by cats. They might be shown sometimes strapping on skates to move around quickly. Or they could be shown using sleds to glide quickly across the snowy landscape. Sometimes this led to humorous incidents. The gnomes were shown as quick to laugh and eager to enjoy a good joke. Like many diminutive folk spirits, they are shown as playing pranks on each other. Or getting together to laugh, tell stories, share treats, and stay warm throughout the cold winter night. They could also be seen gathering in large groups to tell stories and share a meal. This often meant gathering around the table for a hefty Christmas or Yule feast. The Nisse or Tomte were usually offered a bowl of porridge by the human inhabitants on Christmas Eve. It's a little like leaving cookies out for Santa in the United States. Forgetting to give some porridge could make the gnomes angry and lead to no gifts or mean tricks. The gnomes might share this gift of porridge with several other gnomes in the late hours of the night. And they were also often shown gathering together with animals of the wild to celebrate the holidays. They might share a meal with the animals, or just be seen getting together and having a good time. It is likely that the Scandinavian Tomte or Nisse merged with other Christmas traditions to become the elves that help Santa in his workshop at the North Pole. In modern times, it is usual around Christmas to see displays that show gnome-like beings, often referred to as elves, building toys and helping out in Santa's workshop. These little guys have been immortalized as Christmas decorations throughout the last century. They were usually created out of ceramic or plastic, but in modern times they can be made out of polymers and resins, and have very detailed cloth and vinyl clothes. The term elf was a popular catch-all for almost all mythological diminutive spirits throughout much of the last century. But over time, many people have started to make a distinction between the bearded gnome and the more childlike or eternally youthful elf. The most popular type of decoration that shows the youthful or childlike elf is the knee-hugger decoration, such as the popular elf on the shelf. The rules for depicting Santa's elves are not concrete, and sometimes Santa's elves may display characteristics of both types of diminutive spirits. Both versions can still be shown helping Santa in his workshop, or spreading holiday cheer for all to hear. Throughout the years, these decorative figurines are often depicted with the traditional red and white mushrooms. And even the plastic mid-20th century Christmas decorations sometimes depicted a gnome or elf living in a mushroom house. In 1937, Disney released the film Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs into theaters. Many people saw similarities between the film's depiction of the dwarves and the established images of elves or gnomes associated with Christmas. The seven dwarfs quickly became inspirations for many Christmas gnome and elf decorations for years to come. Sears began to produce these tree ornaments in the 1960s based on the Disney dwarves, and they were an instant hit. Many people fondly remember these decorations hanging on their Christmas trees for years and years. A popular early modern take on the Christmas gnome decoration is the conical gnome figure. This decoration uses a cone shape, but adds some sparing features such as a beard and a cloth or felt hat and nose. This creates a gnome-like appearance, but is very cartoonish, stylistic, and whimsical. Features are sometimes added to this conical gnome decoration to give it a little more realism and detail, such as small feet and little arms. Often these added touches are themselves quite simplistic and retain a stylistic and somewhat whimsical appearance. This style of gnome decoration is now created in many different mediums, including ceramic and resin, and sporting a wide variety of features and details. They can be found on flags, pillows, blankets, plates, and so much more. It is also very popular to depict the gnomes with Christmas tree hats. The modern figures are still often paired with mushrooms and other traditional items, and the sculpts are becoming more imaginative and complex every year, while still depicting the gnomes themselves in the same whimsical, conical gnome decoration style. And even the mushroom house continues to be a popular image for Yuletide decorations. Gnomes and their fantastic dwellings have even become popular outdoor decorations. The gnomes continue to help spread holiday cheer to the world, even in modern times. And for all those Christmas gnome enthusiasts, a gnome-themed Christmas market is held every year in Cologne, Germany during the holiday season. Based on the local Cologne folktale of the Heinzelmann, the market is covered with gnome decorations and themes. The market even has its own gnome mascots, each with different looks and attributes. And of course, there's a lot of gnome-themed decorations and merchandise available. If you like Christmas gnomes, and I know you do, you really should look this one up. While gnome and Christmas elves never went out of style, they are certainly more popular now than ever, a merging of traditional Christmas elements with mythology and folklore. In this image from the 1940s by Eric Forsman, the Yule traditions and the Christmas traditions meet and merge as gnomes come to visit the Christ child in a manger with angels in attendance. Christmas gnomes harken back to the Yule traditions and old myths and legends. Though the image has been modernized, they still bring Christmas and holiday cheer during the holiday season, whether in the house or in Santa's workshop. I hope you enjoyed seeing some vintage Christmas gnome images and learning a little history of why gnomes can be found all over store shelves this time of year. If you like these memories of the little things, please subscribe to stay in touch with future content. Thank you so much for joining us, and I hope you will continue along with us as we remember the little things that make the holidays so jolly.